Hey there, everybody. My name is Ann Herbst, and I'm in watch and wait with aortic disease, and I'm an aortic athlete.
And my name is Jack Crow. I am an aortic dissection survivor, and I'm an aortic athlete. And welcome back.
Yay!
So good to
I
see
dressed
you.
up again. I dressed up again.
We have a very strict, uniform that we wear on these interviews, and so yeah, you're dressed appropriately. And I saw a post from you the other day on aortic athletes that you reached some kind of milestone hiking this year. What was that all about?
Yeah, I hit 650 miles, I don't know, a week or two ago. I'm up to well, you can't see that. That's terrible. 671. I hiked out to some dinosaur tracks this past weekend, a good 12-mile hike to see some crazy dinosaur tracks in Colorado in the middle of nowhere. And it's just nuts. I've definitely surpassed last year, and I thought last year was crazy because I had done a 200-mile trek in England. But I guess this whole finding out I have aortic disease on April Fool's Day has kind of pushed me to get out even a little more than I normally do, which is a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm pretty stoked on that. What about you? You had a fun weekend, question mark, in New
Yeah,
York?
I was in New York, running my retirement marathon. Yeah, Monday is supposed to be medal day. It's Tuesday now, but I'm going to show it anyway. Yeah, I finished my retirement marathon at 65 years old. I stumbled across the finish line at a really slow time, but had a absolute blast. I'm telling you, 10 miles in Brooklyn, there's nothing like it in the whole world. The John Ritter Foundation folks couldn't have been nicer. They were cheering at mile 18, and it was just a big emotional party the whole way. So, as an aortic dissection survivor, as Daryl, as our guest here, we'll probably hear a little bit about. There's nothing like being out there in and running a bit. So I had a really good Sunday. And we are going to get to our guest here, but before we do that, I want you all to remember to click like on this video so that it goes out to hundreds and hundreds and maybe 1,000 people. And also remember to join Aortic Athletes and join Aortic Hope on Facebook. That's where you're going to get great peer-to-peer support and find true science, like experts to provide information about aortic disease and exercise.
Yeah, speaking of science, neither Jack nor I are doctors.
What?
No, we're not. I have a journalism degree, so you definitely don't want to come to me for anything. And I'm pretty sure you aren't either. Yeah, so we want to remind people that these interviews are for educational purposes only. Anyone with aortic disease who is watching this should discuss their exercise programs with their own doctor, someone who is more qualified than me and Jack.
Yeah, and that's because people with aortic disease we're highly individualized. Anne's in watch and wait. I've dissected, and there's no one size fits all. So everyone can and should do some form of exercise. That much I'm sure of. But the type and extent and exertion levels depends on where you're at in your aortic journey. So check with your doctor.
Um, and let's talk about who's joining us today, all the way from Australia, which is pretty awesome. Our guest today is Daryl. Daryl, how do you pronounce your last name? Every good journalist asks that question.
Well, my last name is spelled it, pronounced Lilburn. I
Lil.
don't like saying it. Yeah.
Okay, we'll just call
Daryl
you Daryl.
Lilburn. Yeah.
We're gonna call you Daryl, if that's okay. So,
That's fine. Yeah.
welcome, Daryl. How are you doing today?
I'm going very well, thank you. Just had a run this morning, and it's a beautiful day out here. And it's midday right now where I am. Tomorrow your time,
Yep.
and yeah, feeling very good.
Great. Speaking of running, I think that's kind of been your thing. What
Yes.
what did you dissected 12 years ago?
Yes, 2013. So
What
over
what
2013.
was your exercise? What did it look like before you dissected? What would you do?
Well, I was in the middle of running like 1 or 2 marathons a year, and my marathons were gradually getting better. Like the first one back in 2009, I really struggled. It was a very hot day. I remember it was in Sydney. Part of it was on the freeway. I think it got to 30 degrees Celsius, and I had to walk the last 10 or 15K. So I wasn't very happy with that, and I wanted to do a little bit better. And so every time I did it, I was creeping closer and closer to less than 4 hours. And finally, in July of 2013, I went to Wellington in New Zealand, and I ran there. And I did it in 3 hours 57, which was probably my peak of marathon running. And I had been aiming to do the Hawaii Marathon in November of 2013, and I'd been training for that. And it was only a month before that when I had my dissection.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about that? You and I were talking on the phone yesterday, and it happened in everybody's favorite place, the airport.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, I live in Sydney, in Australia, and I actually grew up in Melbourne, and all my family are in Melbourne. So my 2 nephews wanted to do their first half marathon, and I'd been running for years and years by that stage, and I said to them, "Well, look, I'll come down and run with you and help you out." And so it was on a Sunday morning, October the 13th, and we got very early, went down there, and with my 2 nephews at the start line, I said to them, "Well, let's all run together, and I'll coach you guys along. Well, let's go." But of course, one of my youngest nephew, about 21 at the time, I think, decided he was going to just charge off, and off he went, like about off into the distance, and decided, well, that's it. I'm not going to let him go and just charge off like that. So I went chasing after him, and at the end of the run, I overtook him, which is great. But I just did feel a little bit more tired than usual. Like, half marathons, I was doing more than half marathons every weekend. But I did notice I had to go lie on a bed that afternoon, and I was flying back to Sydney in the evening. And then I went to the airport, and for some reason, I can't remember, I had a heavy day pack with me, which I was carrying on my shoulder. And I got to the airport gate, where all the seats are, sitting there waiting to board the plane. And just as I was sitting down and putting my bag off my shoulder, taking my bag off my shoulder, I felt this feeling like, someone was choking me in the neck like that. And it was really weird and not very pleasant at all. And I sat down with my head in my hands thinking, what is going on here? Because I'd been a cancer patient years and years ago. I'd been through different types of pain, but this was something different. And luckily, I had bought my first iPad, about 2 months before, and I had it in my bag. And I pulled it out and Googled heart attack symptoms, and it showed a picture of a guy with, a red glow around his neck, and it said, "If you feel like this, you should get help straight away." And I just went, "What?" And I called my wife, and she said, "Look, talk to the Qantas staff and get some help." And so by that stage, the pain had gone, but I still went over to them, and I saw a group of them sitting there waiting for the plane. And I said, "Excuse me, guys, but I think I've got a problem here. I think I might be having heart attack symptoms." They all sort of looked around, like that, and thankfully, they sat me down and started talking to me to keep me talking. Got the ambulance, got into the ambulance thinking, look, I haven't got any pain anymore. I'm probably just imagining it, or there's nothing probably. All the guys at work will be laughing at me on Monday when I come in and tell them about this. And then in the ambulance on the way to the hospital, the ambulance guy put me on an ECG, and he said to me, "Look, I don't think you're having a heart attack, but there's something funny here in your ECG." And when he said that, I thought, there really is something wrong here. And that's when I got to the hospital. He took me in for a CT straight away. And I clearly remember the surgeon coming and telling me that you hadn't had a heart attack, but your aorta's got a tear in it. And you probably got about 2 or 3 hours to live, maybe 2 days at the most. And we have to operate right away.
So you don't have much of a choice there. You're away from home and you've got to do
Yes.
this thing.
That's right. Yes.
And everything went good, obviously. And my
Yes.
favorite thing is you woke up and asked a very important question.
I did. I wasn't expecting to wake up so early, so I was asleep, obviously on the bed. It'd been about 3 hours after the surgery, and the nurses told my wife, "You can go and get a cup of coffee because you won't be awake for another few hours yet." But my brother was there as well, and so she left the bed, and I saw my brother, and I had the oxygen mask on, but I hate oxygen masks, so I tried to slide it off with rubbing my face on the pillow, and I said to him, "So, can you tell me how is Essendon going?" Essendon being my football team. So that
very
was the
important.
very first question I had after I woke up.
Not how did I do or will I be okay? How did my football team do? So you were
Yes.
doing okay. How quickly did you start thinking about exercise again? Because exercise and running, it's part of your personality. It's part of your inner being. It's part of who you are. So after you asked about the whole football thing, and when did you start thinking about that? And how did you get back into exercise?
Oh, I started thinking about it straight away. So I remember about a day or two later, I still wasn't allowed to walk, and I was being wheeled over to have another scan. And I remember I saw in a passageway that had some plants. It was the first greenery I'd seen in the whole last 2 days. I just remember thinking, gee, I'm going to run if I can, and if I can't run, I'm going to walk, and if I can't walk, I'm going to do something in a wheelchair, but I'm not going to just stop and do nothing if I can. So that's how early it was. When do I get back? Was basically the question in my head.
So what did it look like at first? What were you able to do, and how did you build upon that?
Well, the cardiologists were pretty conservative, and talking to other people on the forum, they have been really conservative. They said that, a common thing is you can't lift more than 20 kilos, which was that was fine with me. Wasn't really weightlifting anymore. I had to keep my heart rate below 120, which was when I was running in the old days being before I had the dissection, I used to think that if my heart rate was below 160, I was taking it easy. So that took a bit of getting used to. And I wasn't allowed to run for 6 months. They wanted the aorta to repair. So they said, you can walk, but you can't run for 6 months. And they were basically the restrictions that I was put under. Obviously, and of course the medication. So I was on, beta blockers. I'm still on a high dose of beta blockers now, actually. Blood thinner because I had my aortic valve replaced. And blood pressure tablets. So I'm on a bit of a regime. Unfortunately stuck, but oh well, what the heck.
But you're doing good, and you're doing something that's sort of interesting now. You're still running, and you're doing like these virtual things. Explain to me, like you started this during COVID. COVID made kind of everyone have to get creative in how they're living life, right? And this was kind of your weird thing. So talk about what you've been doing since COVID, since 2020. Kind of these challenges you've given yourself because you're that kind of guy.
Yeah, well, I'm that kind of guy. And I'd always been a bit of a walker. as well. So I used to like walking to work, and work for me was about an hour over the Harbour Bridge away. So every day I'd walk in and walk back home. That was about 10K, which I never counted for anything really, just something I like to do. But when COVID came along, I always had a run that I had in, like months ahead. There'd be a half marathon. Like I'd just done the Fort Worth half marathon with Carmen in March. Was it February, March of 2020? And I was looking for another run to aim for. But of course, COVID came along, and big crowds and stuff were temporarily not allowed, and that wasn't going to happen. And I was thinking, well, what the heck am I going to do? I've got nothing to aim for. And the guy I found the Run Down Under, it was called, or it's now called Run the World because it's expanded. But it was a guy who started basically a spreadsheet application back in 2014, which could map where you were. So, for example, every time you do a run or a walk on Strava, it would put it into this database, and then it could trace you on a map, this virtual map around Australia. And he's now expanded it to other places like New Zealand, Canada, US, Europe, and Asia and Africa. And I thought, wouldn't it be great to be able to get around Australia, and which was about 14,000 kilometres. And I found a good rate for me was about 13 kilometres a day. And that would be, say, a run of 6 or 7 kilometres in the morning, walking to work and walk back, or do the run, catch the ferry into work, and then do a 3-kilometre walk at lunchtime and then walk back home. Something like that.
You're biting them off in chunks.
Yes. So every day, keep up that routine, trying to maintain the 13 kilometres plus every day, walking or running, it doesn't matter either way. The main rule with it is that it has to be something you deliberately do. So you can't be just counting steps around the house. You have to go out and deliberately walk to the supermarket 2 kilometres away, or walk to work, or do a run 5 kilometres plus, whatever. So yeah, I've been living by that, and it's now been a bit over 5 years, and I've just crossed in total 25,000 kilometres in that time. So I ran about 5,000 kilometres a year on foot.
So how long did it take you to do the Australia thing?
It took me about 3 years to do the 14,000K.
Was there some sort of celebration afterwards? I feel like you should have done. Okay, what did you do?
Yeah, well, the good thing was the finishing line was in Sydney, and so I calculated it so that I could actually finish on the virtual finishing line. So I ran over the Harbour Bridge down to the Sydney Opera House, which you might be familiar with, and the finishing line was exactly where it was on the virtual map.
So you really got down. You're just really nerded out about this. This is great.
Yeah, I am. I might as well do it.
You've done a couple other ones too, right?
I have. Yes, I did New Zealand. So I knew my wife and I were going to New Zealand, so I thought New Zealand would be a good one to do as well, because it's really good to be familiar with where you're virtually running. So
it's important. Yeah, it's important.
Yeah. So I did New Zealand, and that took me about a year. And that was up to middle of last year. And of course, my wife and I had been planning a trip to Canada for a while. And so I thought that was the most obvious next choice for a map. So I started Canada. Yeah, it was about, I think it was not long before we went there. And I started in Toronto, and I'm now 6,000 kilometres into it, and I'm just approaching the border between British Columbia and Yukon.
Oh, be careful for the grizzly bears in the Yukon.
Yes, that's right.
Be careful for the fake virtual grizzly bears
yes.
in the Yukon. Do you think about those things? Do you ever think about the place you're at while you're doing, do you ever do that?
Yes,
I mean,
I
Australia,
do.
you're in Australia. You think about it?
Oh yeah, yeah. So I often go to Google Map and try to locate exactly where I am. You know, you've got the road sort of vision where you can see exactly where you are. Yeah, just check out the place, and every time there are little waypoints along the way where you get an email to say, "Oh, congratulations, you've reached so and so place," and it'll give you a bit of a background about the place.
That's pretty cool. And
Yeah,
it sounds like your approach to exercise may have changed a little bit post dissection. Like we had talked a little bit about you really were pushing yourself, and you were lifting heavier weights, and you were trying to keep up with your nephews in the half
yeah.
marathon. What's it like post dissection? Is it more about fun and more about just going out and being outside and doing those things?
Oh, yeah. For me now, it's more about how smoothly and easily I do it. So before it was all about, pushing to see how fast I could go. I wanted to do a sub 4 hour marathon. That was my big deal back then, which thankfully I did before I dissected. But I found afterwards, I had these limitations, but what I really enjoyed was being able to go out there, run a distance at it's a slow pace, but it's okay. It's running, there's no doubt about it. And you get to the end, you're not huffing and puffing, you're not really tired, you feel great. And I find that a bit of a high, to be honest. And it's a wonderful sense, like I was saying, what do I call it? The well-oiled machine. You're running along, you don't feel tired, you don't feel like you're pushing yourself, you feel like you can go as far as you like. And the low heart rate has really put me into that sort of frame of mind.
Yeah, you said that you
Yeah.
actually you've learned to not mind the beta blockers.
Yeah, in fact, I want them. In a way. I want them because
I've not heard anyone say that.
It makes it so easy to keep my heart rate low. And look, let's face it, it's a big problem, and it was a very dangerous situation I was in. So I think for me, I mean, everyone's different. For me, I don't want to really push it. I had my bit of luck, and I know that I recovered very quickly and very well. It didn't have to be that way. So look, why push it? I think I've got a bit of a responsibility to look after myself. So yes, it is important to keep your heart rate low. But once again, something I didn't expect is I get that beautiful feeling that I did this easily. I don't have to, I don't have to recover too much. I feel great, and that's what I really like about it.
If you had to compare what kind of shape you were back then to now, how does that feel different?
Well, I was in really good shape at the time when the dissection happened, and that's probably what made my recovery as good as it was. In fact, the doctors said that they thought I recovered so well because being a long distance runner, my brain was used to running on low oxygen levels, which explains why I woke up so quickly and recovered so well, because I know it's not the same for everybody. But now, I'm probably, well, an interesting thing was at work a couple of years ago, we had a health check. We could go and get different measurements. And to my surprise, they said that your fat percentage is that of an ultra marathon runner. And they were asking me what I was doing, because I think my fat percentage was something ridiculous, like 6.5%. And I'm not running full marathons. I'm not running ultra marathons or anything. I'm just training at this level the whole time. So yeah, my shape can't be too bad.
You were surprised at that.
Yes, I was surprised. Yes.
That's pretty awesome. Did you go around the office bragging about it? I mean, I feel like you should. You should have.
Well, I felt I'll tell
That's
my
really.
wife.
Did she believe you? Is the question.
Oh yeah, yeah. My wife's a
That-
bit of a fanatic in exercise in a different way, but yeah.
So we talked about the beta blockers, and is there anything else that you're on? You said you're on blood thinners. Is there, you're on all sorts of things that won't let you forget that you've had an aortic dissection.
That's correct. Yeah, it's forever, I'm afraid. But I love to be no pill. I love to have a no pill life, but you know, hey, that's a payoff. So what can you do?
An interesting thing that you're doing now, though, is you're also not just the virtual walking and run, virtual run and walk. You're also kind of mentoring people. I don't want to say mentoring, but you're talking with people who might be trying to get into exercise and be a little bit nervous. You chat with people, right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I've just started this out actually, and I've got a couple of people on the list at the moment. I mean, I'm not a trainer. I haven't got any, training in being a physical trainer, and so I'm certainly not a doctor or a cardiologist. So I can't really tell people what to do or how much. But I was thinking, the one thing I have got is this motivation and this schedule that I run in my head, and I keep up every week. And I've been doing this for years. The 13K a day. For 5+ years. Plus, obviously, I was a marathon runner before that. So I'm very well accustomed to motivating myself and just getting out and doing stuff. Like, for example, after this interview, I'll be going out and doing a 3-kilometer walk just to keep my kilometers up for the day. So I would like to be able to pass it on if it can assist anybody else in some way. And my suggestion to the two friends who I'm doing this with at the moment was, look, every week at the same time, I will send you a message, and one of them's SMS, one's messenger. Just say, oh, hi, how you going? How's your exercise been going this week? And my intention is that if you know someone's going to call you up and ask you how your exercise is going, even if I'm not going to criticize anybody if they haven't done it, it's up to them. But if you know someone's going to call you up, you're more likely to think to yourself, oh, okay, well, look, I'll get up and do a walk around the block. So this isn't for your jacks who are highly motivated people already, and they don't need someone to come and hassle them. But this is more for people who they want to get out there, but they've got other things on their mind at the moment. For example, I've got one of my friends doing this. He's not a dissection survivor. He's actually got 2 parents who are in nursing homes, and he feels like he has to keep contactable all the time. But he's also had problems with diabetes. So he finds his exercise has been slipping off because he just keeps thinking about these other things all the time. So every week I send him an SMS and just say, Sam, how are you going? How's the exercise been coming along? And that seems to just prod something in his head to remember to go out there, do a walk around the block, something like that. So I thought, well, look, if there are other people out there who would like this little service, then I'm happy to just send me a message, on Messenger or on the Aortic website, and I'm happy to provide it.
I think it's important to have people who know what you've gone through or what you're going through kind of have your back. And it kind of sounds like that's what you're doing, because mental health wise, this aortic disease and an aortic dissection can kind of mess with your mind, right? Did you go through anything like that? I know that I immediately asked my cardiologist, do you know a mental health professional who specializes in this kind of thing? Because I wanted to know immediately, because my brain was like, what? Did you go through anything like that?
Yes, I did. As I've explained before, I had the cancer back in 1987, so I'd been through a bit of the trauma of finding out that you're mortal after all, and you're not going to live forever.
Yeah, you got
But
diagnosed with cancer when you were young,
I was
and
21.
like
Yeah.
countless tumors. You told me, like it
Oh
is
yeah.
mind blowing.
Yeah. It was like I was reciting off what that oncologist said. It was 12 tumors in your lungs. You've got a 12-centimeter tumor in your liver. You've got a tumor in your lymph glands, in your neck, and up your spine. One of them blocking your kidney. If you made your kidney swell up, press on your spine, and give you lots of back problems. So yeah, so I had a bit. And my first thought when he said it was, "I'm dead." And then he said, "No, well, look, you've got a good chance, but we've got to give you chemotherapy and all that sort of thing," which was pretty traumatic. But I got over that, and I was pretty well since until I had the dissection. But at the same time, it's still, yeah, I had a bit of a difficult time for 6 months afterwards. And I had episodes, I was back at work, but I remember walking to work. As I said, I do the walking to work. Sometimes walking home from work, I feel like dancing, like I was on a high. It was really, like spinning around and go, woo. And then I'd get home and it would get dark. And for half an hour, I'd be sitting on the couch with my wife, terrified, and for no reason, just terrified. Luckily for me, work provided me with a counsellor, and I was able to work through that. And within about 6 months, it had really gone. But yeah, I definitely had a little bit of PTSD myself.
Yeah, it's nice that you had a workplace that was looking after you as well, I think, and
Yes.
that probably meant the world to you.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, no, it was really, really good. She was a really good counsellor, and yeah, it helped a lot.
And exercise, it sounds like, gets you through all of this stuff too. It's like we talked about, it's part of who you are. What do you
Yes.
think? What do you think it brings to you besides 6.5% body fat?
Well, I mean, I'm a very goal-oriented person, obviously, and it gives me a goal, and there's nothing I like better than reaching a goal. So I'm making them up all the time. Like I'm doing some balancing work at the moment, where I've got a little curvy piece of cork which I stand on, and a little ball, and I toss it up and catch it while I'm balancing one on one leg on the little balancing thing, and I'm going to toss up and down 5 times without falling off. Set goals on that all the time, and so yeah, exercise is a great way. Makes you feel really good about yourself, and unless you're really silly and you push yourself too hard, you're making yourself feel a lot better just in general life. And yeah, it's really good for you all around, I think.
And it's helped you make friends. You have these trips that you go on to exercise, but also meet other people who have crappy aortas.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that was a wonderful part of planning those trips, was having firstly the 2020 trip to Texas, when we stayed with Carmen, and we did the Fort Worth half marathon together. So that was a great little trip, and we were able to combine that with meeting up with obviously Carmen, survivor, very important survivor there, and then I had the run in Lilburn in Cape Breton Island, which I did with Alison Hodder, who's a fellow survivor. And obviously I had Jack to train with while I was there, and Carmen to do the walking in the Rockies with.
That's
So
great. Jack, did you and Jack race at any point, and who is faster?
The question is, who is slower?
That's true. That is what we're most proud of now. Who can keep the old heart rate at 120 running?
Yeah.
I'm not allowed to run because mine would go much higher than that. But yeah, what was that like, you two getting together?
Oh, it was great. It was interesting to compare the positions we're at, because an interesting thing about, if you're not on beta blockers, your heart rate will jump up when you start running. But for both Jack and I, it's a lot slower going up. And it was good to run with somebody else with the same condition as I have.
Well, and Ann, Daryl is a pioneer. He may not look like it. He's a total pioneer, because Daryl, you've been stable for 12 years. So your aorta's been stable. Is that fair?
That's right. It hasn't changed in that time since the dissection.
And I've met, or I've encountered people who've been stable a long time, even 20 years, but you're the only person I know who's been stable and who's been doing moderate aerobic activity the entire time. So
Yeah.
we hope to do this study start this study with aortic athletes of an observational study of post-aortic dissection, recreational endurance athletes who do moderate aerobic activity, because we hope that, Daryl, you're the prototype, and that other people can do this too, and it's safe to do, and okay.
Yeah. Well, once again, as you say, obviously you've got to go for whatever advice you get from your cardiologist. And in my case, like I said, they were pretty cautious. They didn't want me to get my heart rate above 120, and as a result, I'm on the high beta blocker, right? And whether that's helped a lot, I'm not sure. I know some people want to reduce their beta blocker. I often read about that. People saying they want to get their beta blocker down or off it altogether. In my case, I feel like I'm on a bit of a winning formula. I'm doing the exercise I want to do, whilst I prefer not to be on medication. Between that and risking something worse happening again, and I probably won't be so lucky the second time, I'd prefer to stay on the higher dose if I can, and do what I'm doing now.
Amen. I totally agree. And hey, Joshua, maybe we can ask the audience, if there's live audience folks out there, they can put some questions in the chat box if there's anything there. And one last thing I wanted to say to Daryl, from my point of view, is this guy helped me when he didn't even know who I was, because when I dissected, 6 months later, I heard about this woman, Carmen David, who was much younger than me, but who had dissected after giving birth to her second daughter, and who had run a marathon post dissection. And eventually, I talked to Carmen, and she kept talking about some guy from Sydney, Australia, who preceded her, who she got inspired by, who had done half marathons, after he dissected. And I thought to myself, dang, I think I could do a half marathon post dissection. So you, buddy, inspired me without even knowing it.
Well, that's great, but you streaked your head, you've done the full. I haven't done a full yet.
Yet. Did you see what he said?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know. I feel like he's going to. I heard you said that you're like thinking about some crazy stuff. Interesting stuff. I won't say crazy. Interesting stuff.
Interesting stuff. Well, look, like I was saying, I'm really enjoying doing what I'm doing right now. I am slowly increasing my distance. I've had my injury problems that are not dissection related, which have sort of limited my running a bit lately. But now I'm back up to, I did 14 kilometers last weekend, and that went pretty well. I'm sort of hoping to get to the point where I used to be before the whole thing happened, where I can do a half marathon comfortably and not, and I think it's probably my limit for a weekly run. But who knows, at some point in the future, you know, if I'm finding those half marathons quite comfortably, I'm sure there'll be that little voice in my head that says, "Oh, Daryl, maybe you could just up it a little bit further."
Daryl,
But we'll see.
maybe Ann could lead us on some hikes in the mountains.
Oh
That
yeah,
would be
come
great.
on out anytime. I know this state very well. And I drag people on what we call death marches, anything that is 13 miles of walking up a mountain. We call those Colorado death marches.
Oh, I can't wait.
And not only that, I'm a bit of a dinosaur fan, so I wouldn't mind checking out those dinosaur tracks you're talking about.
Yeah, the problem with that hike is that it was 80 degrees. So my heart was cooked. It was like a little it's too hot for November in Colorado, but it was
Right.
pretty cool seeing those dinosaur tracks. You've got a race this weekend.
I do. I've got it's actually my first trail run. So I'm doing, it's called the Bodie National Park Trail Run. It's 14 kilometers. It's on a beach for about 4 or 5 kilometers of that, and going up some steps and then on a trail. I'm not expecting to go very quickly at all. But yeah, it'll be fun to do. It's not far from my place here now, so looking forward to it.
How many different types of deadly snakes will you come across?
Well, look, thankfully the snakes will hear about a couple of thousand people running along and not be there. But
So
there'd
keep
be heaps of
yourself
them
near the
there.
back. Keep yourself near the back of the
Yes,
pack.
that's right.
Okay.
I won't be out in front. Don't worry. So that won't be a problem.
I have to hike in front of the garter snakes up here in the Midwest. We have no poisonous snakes, but my wife is terrified of the garter snakes that are these little fellas. You know, they're
Okay.
like little tiny guys. Joshua, are there any questions?
Well, let's go ahead and check into chat. We'll start off by saying hi to Rob, and we've got Ken. He's from Brisbane. Tom, and please and thank you. Ken says, Ken from Brisbane. Here, Daryl, did your dissection present any other cardiac or vascular issues?
No. So obviously I had the aortic valve was damaged as a result of the dissection, so I had my aortic valve replaced. But they said my heart was in really good shape. It was just simply that I had my aorta dissected, but the rest of me was okay.
You know, Ken, we interviewed, and you can find on our webpage, aorticathletes.org, we interviewed Dr. Patricia Vassallo a couple weeks ago, and she talked about how the incidence of AFib, atrial fibrillation, is significantly higher with people who have aortic disease. So it correlates sometimes. And then I think maybe you throw in a little bit of endurance athletes. I also happen to know that endurance athletes have 4 to 5 times more likelihood of having AFib. So there are some other cardiac kind of associations that I think our cardiologists are probably on the lookout for, and we should be as well.
Yeah, and Daryl, there was a genetic component with yours as well, right?
Yes, it was. So it was called, now I'm no geneticist either, but it was SMADS3. And yeah, I've got a couple of other symptoms of it, like a little cleft palate and chin's a bit bigger than normal, nose is a little bit bigger than normal. And that came from my mother, who came from her father. And as a result of that, they did some scans on the rest of my family. And incidentally, that nephew who dashed off in the half marathon, they found he had an aneurysm, which they've been able to keep under control as a result of that. And another cousin had bicuspid aortic valve, and she was able to have treatment as a result of finding out. But yeah, she didn't know, and obviously my nephew didn't know either. So
It kind of shows the importance of letting family members know about this stuff so they can go and get,
yeah.
that's got to feel like pretty good for you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, you know, I'm probably a lot closer to that cousin than I was. She was really, really grateful that, yeah, I told her about it and she should get a scan.
Let's go back to the
Joshua,
chat, shall we?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Please and thank you says, do you struggle with your energy level?
Yeah, I do have days where I have really low heart rate days where I get out there and my heart rate won't get above 103 or 104, which is really frustrating. And I just have to live with that. If it got worse, I would definitely go back to the cardiologist and say, "Hey, this isn't working. I can't even run here." But yeah, I do have the odd days. It seems to have gotten better with time, but certainly there are days when yes, I'm a bit flat and I can't get the heart rate up, even to 115.
Do we have anything else, Joshua? What does that feel like,
Oh,
Daryl, when you're trying to push, when you're, I mean, I'm not on beta blockers, so I don't know. For those of people who are not on beta blockers, I seem to be the only one. What does that feel like then? When
It
you're
just
trying
feels
to get
like,
past that?
yeah, well, if you know how you usually feel during a run, then when your heart rate is just not high enough, you can just feel that you're struggling a bit today. And all I have to do is look at my watch and realize, hey, I'm trying hard here, but my heart rate's only 104. Something funny's going on here. And yeah, just say, okay, well, look, I have to accept today I'm gonna have to run slower. Don't worry about the averages. Just take it easy, and then hopefully tomorrow, and usually tomorrow, it's okay. I don't know why it happens. It may be what I'm eating the night before or something. I don't know. But yeah, sometimes it happens. Like I said, it hasn't been frequent enough for me to go back to the cardiologist and ask for. And actually, there's one story I should say about that is when I first started on the beta blockers, I was on 100 milligrams twice a day, which is really high. And I was having trouble. I was having episodes where I couldn't walk straight in the street. It was really weird. It was like I was walking diagonally, even though I was trying to walk forward. And then one day at work, I fainted. I got to work, sat at my desk and looked at something hard on the screen, and boom, next thing I knew, I woke up on the floor. And that's when I reduced it down to 75 twice a day. So that was a little bit too high.
hey, Daryl, would you say that we are working within a zone almost? In other words, like I did on the marathon in New York on Sunday, I think my average heart rate was 111.
Yeah, that's great.
My highest heart rate was 126, and you probably have your heart rate is probably 126 when you get out of your car in Denver in the Mile High City, you know. um, and but I found that the job is to make a huge base. Like instead of developing the high level 160 heart rate stuff that the great marathoners and other terrific world class athletes have, that we play within this zone that's a little lower. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. That's exactly what we're doing. And I don't underestimate building that base up, because that's difficult to do, to keep your heart rate going that low. And, doing the running that we're doing, you have to be in really good shape. And that takes a little bit of work. It's not something you can do overnight. You just got to get out there and be patient and be aware that, look, there's going to be days when your heart rate's just too low. But, it will inch along slowly, but you'll slowly get better.
And Dr. Prakash, Siddharth Prakash, who's a cardiologist from Texas, who's a friend of aortic athletes, and Dr. Vassallo, who I mentioned we interviewed, all said that if the beta blockers are really a problem for you, there are other, products, other pharmaceuticals, either that are different kinds of beta blockers or other drugs such as ACE inhibitors that you can also go to. So I don't think we should feel that we are absolutely locked in. And you also said your dosages has changed a little bit over time too, from the early days post dissection, and that was the same for me too. Joshua, other questions?
Let's welcome Anne to the chat. Hello, Anne. Chat's got no questions. I have a question. Daryl, how did you get back to sleeping normally? Did that take a while, or were you just knocking off every night super easy?
No, it did take a while for me. And one of the reasons was that I had the artificial valve, and you could hear it when you put your head in the pillow very loudly. For the first few months, I found that really annoying. Like, every time I put my head in the pillow, click, 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 all the time. But it gradually went away to the point now where I don't even hear it. But yeah, definitely at the start, those first few months, it was difficult sleeping.
Any sleep apnea, Daryl?
No, not that I know of. Not that I know of.
I do. Anne, do you?
No. Daryl, none that your wife knows of? I mean, you can't usually hear the person if they've got, yeah, I don't have it. I'm one of those freaks that have this for no apparent reason. But yeah, so you don't know if your wife doesn't push you a lot when you're sleeping?
Oh, well, occasionally, yeah. If I lie on my back and, yeah, I'll do it a little bit, but it's not like, I don't think it's to that serious stage.
All this stuff that you've done and gone through, like the cancer stuff, that was bad. Dissection isn't fun, but you've kind of stuck with this part of your life all the way through, this exercise mentality. What has all this stuff, I always want to know, what has all this stuff taught you about yourself?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One thing that's taught me is that the graph doesn't always go up. And that's one thing I've had to cope with, especially since the dissection, is that you're not going to have every day where you improve on your time from the day before. And you've got to give yourself a bit of a leeway for that. There's going to be days where you don't feel great. There's going to be days where you can't run. You just have to walk because you haven't recovered from a couple of days ago, or because you're a bit concerned about, some other little, and people like us who've been through difficult diseases like cancer or dissection, you do get a bit more paranoid about symptoms. So sometimes you just have days where you think, oh, look, I shouldn't really be out there running today. I really should just, and that's okay, and it's probably go easy on yourself. And as long as you know that you're motivated and you're doing what you can, don't hit yourself over the head because you didn't do a proper run today, because maybe circumstances weren't right. That's something that's really been important to my frame of mind, is thinking about the long term rather than the short term. And being kind to yourself. Don't hit yourself because you didn't break your 10 kilometer speed record today. And think about what you can do, how you can improve it. But yeah, that's how it's the positive sort of frame of mind about yourself been really important to me, I think.
Sometimes it's just as simple as virtually walking all the way around Australia over the course of 3 years. Sometimes it's just that simple, Daryl.
Whatever goal you set yourself, yeah. Doing your 5,000 kilometers a year, or are you doing your hiking? I mean, it's pretty much the same thing, really, isn't it?
So Daryl, what's next then? So you're in Canada right now. You went through Australia, you did New Zealand, you're in Canada. What's on the horizon?
Well, I've been thinking about that. Next one, Canada's going to take me another two and a bit years, I think. And currently, it predicts I'll finish in January 2028, which sounds like a long time away. I'll probably do another short one. The UK will take about a year, and then I may do Asia. I might do Southeast Asia or something, and do a trip in Southeast Asia while I'm doing the run. A real life trip.
And if you run out of, you could do lunar, or or Mars or something like that. There's plenty of places to go. The sky's the limit.
That's right. It's just your imagination holding you back.
Well, it's been fun talking to you, Daryl.
Yeah.
I
well, thank
appreciate
you.
I appreciate your frame of mind, and yeah, don't be so hard on yourself. I think that's like something good for everyone to remember.
Yes, I definitely. That's one thing I'd want people to have a think about. But thank you for having me on. It's been a lot of fun.
And Daryl, I think what I also have learned from today and from getting to know you is just the importance of community. It can be really isolating to be diagnosed with aortic disease, whether you're in watch and wait like Ann or whether you're dissected like us. And how important, I had no idea I would develop wonderful friends like you all. After I dissected. I mean, you get the bad diagnosis, but yeah, on the other hand, I've got some wonderful friends. So thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, that's all right. Well, thank you, Jack, as well. I mean, it's been great, and what a great time we had together. And hopefully we will have another time together at some point in the future. Maybe you'll come over here.
I'd love to. All right. Well,
Okay.
you guys, thank you all. Thank you, Daryl. Ann, you did terrific. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Anne.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you in, what'd you say, 2028, when you're done with the
Canada.
when you're done with Canada, you're moving on to something else. We'll circle back in 2 years.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, take care, guys.
Okay, catch you later, guys.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And don't forget to like and subscribe on your way out. One more big wave for everyone. Come on. Big waves, big smiles.